Science is supposed to solve mysteries about our world, our history, and even the universe itself. But no matter how advanced it gets, there are still a lot of ancient mysteries nobody has been able to solve. And in this video, we're going to show you 15 of the most incredible ancient lost mysteries science still can't explain. So, are you ready to see the unknown? Well, let's dive in. Number 15, the lost years of Jesus. Few mysteries in history are as fascinating as the missing years of Jesus. The Bible describes him as a 12-year-old astonishing temple priest in Jerusalem with his wisdom. Then suddenly, the story goes silent. Nearly 18 years later, he reappears at the Jordan River to begin his ministry. For someone whose words would later shape billions of lives, that gap has puzzled historians for centuries. Some think Jesus simply remained in Nazareth, working as a craftsman and living an ordinary life far from public attention. But there are some experts who think those silent years may have taken him far beyond Judea. Legends claim he traveled through Egypt, studied with spiritual teachers in India, or even reached Britain alongside Joseph of Arimathea. In Kashmir, some traditions go even further, claiming he later died there. The problem is that none of these stories can be proven. The Gospels offer almost no details, and later writings are filled with contradictions. So where was Jesus during those lost years? Nobody truly knows. Number 14. Vanishing pre-Egyptian civilizations. Before Egypt became the land of pharaohs, pyramids, and golden tombs, something older was already growing along the Nile. Around 3100 BC, Narmer is usually credited with uniting Upper and Lower Egypt and becoming the first pharaoh. But the story before him is far less clear and more strange. Long before dynastic Egypt, cultures like the Badarian and Naqada were farming, herding cattle, making pottery, burying their dead with care, and creating symbols that looked like the first steps toward writing. Their graves show early beliefs about the afterlife, and their artifacts suggest trade routes reaching far beyond Egypt. Then, almost suddenly, kingship appears out of nowhere. Tombs become larger, writing develops, and Egypt looks like a powerful state already standing on its feet. Tomb Uj at Abydos even shows signs of rulers and early hieroglyphs before Narmer. So was Narmer truly Egypt's first king, or did forgotten rulers come before him? Well, their names may still be buried beneath the Nile's sand. Number 13. Hittite archives unearthed for decades. The Hittites were known mostly from scattered biblical references, and many historians doubted they had ever ruled a big empire. That changed in 1906 when archaeologists found the ruins of Hattusa in modern Turkey, along with thousands of clay tablets buried beneath the site. The find revealed a powerful Bronze Age civilization controlling large parts of Anatolia and northern Syria. The tablets contained royal decrees, myths, treaties, rituals, diplomatic letters, and legal codes written in cuneiform script. Among the most crucial discoveries was the peace treaty between the Hittites and Egypt after the Battle of Kadesh, considered the world's oldest known international peace agreement. The archives also revealed details about religion, trade, politics, and daily life inside the empire. Yet huge gaps still remain because many tablets are damaged, fragmented, or untranslated. Large sections of the archives were destroyed during the Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BC. Even now, scholars continue piecing broken fragments together, slowly rebuilding the story of a civilization history nearly erased forever. Number 12. Cucuteni. Tripilia megasites. Long before the pyramids of Egypt or the great cities of Mesopotamia, a forgotten civilization was building enormous settlements across modern-day Ukraine and Moldova. Known as the Cucuteni Tripilia culture, these prehistoric communities existed between 5000 and 3000 BC, and some may have housed tens of thousands of people. What makes them so mysterious is their scale. Massive circular settlements stretched across miles, filled with tightly packed clay houses, workshops, storage areas, and open gathering spaces. Some homes even appear to have been 2 stories tall, something almost unheard of in Neolithic Europe. Their pottery was covered in striking spiral designs, and small figurines hint at religious beliefs we still do not understand. Then, almost without explanation, the civilization vanished. Many settlements were deliberately burned before being abandoned, leaving behind thick layers of ash. Some experts say climate change and exhausted farmland forced people to leave. Others think migrating groups from the east may have destroyed them. Whatever happened, one thing is certain. One of Europe's oldest advanced societies disappeared before history had the chance to remember it. Number 11. Phantom Island of Hy-Brasil. For hundreds of years, sailors believed a mysterious island existed somewhere west of Ireland. It appeared on maps, inspired expeditions, and became one of the Atlantic Ocean's strangest legends. The island was called Hy-Brasil, and many people were convinced it was real. The earliest known map showing Hy-Brasil dates to 1325, when cartographer Angelino Dulcert placed it in the Atlantic. Over the following centuries, it continued appearing on European charts, often drawn as a circular island divided by a narrow channel. Irish folklore described it as a hidden land covered in mist, visible only once every 7 years. Sailors claimed they had seen distant coastlines rising through fog before disappearing again. There are many historians who believe the legend came from sea mirages or navigation mistakes copied from one map to another for generations. But others think unusual atmospheric conditions may have distorted views of real coastlines far away. Well, whatever the truth was, no expedition ever managed to find the island. Even today, Hy-Brasil remains one of history's most famous phantom lands. Number 10. Where is Cleopatra's tomb? There's no one more famous in ancient Egyptian history than Cleopatra. She was the last ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty, the final pharaoh of Egypt, and one of the most powerful women the ancient world had ever seen. But even after centuries of research, nobody has been able to find her tomb. And that mystery still frustrates archaeologists to this day. Many historians believe Cleopatra was buried somewhere near her royal palace in ancient Alexandria. The problem is that large parts of the old city now rest beneath the Mediterranean Sea, which means her tomb could already be lost forever. Still, not everyone agrees with that theory. Some researchers believe Cleopatra and Mark Antony may have been buried at Taposiris Magna, an ancient temple near Alexandria dedicated to Osiris, the Egyptian god of the dead. Excavations there have uncovered burial chambers, golden-tongued mummies, funeral masks, ancient coins with Cleopatra's face, and even a massive underground tunnel stretching thousands of feet. But despite years of searching, Cleopatra herself has never been found. Do you know where it is? Number 9. Vanished Celtic records. The Celts once controlled enormous parts of Europe, stretching from Ireland to Anatolia, yet almost none of their original written history survived. They left behind beautiful metalwork, weapons, jewelry, and massive hill forts, but their own voices nearly vanished from the historical record. Much of this mystery centers around the Druids, the intellectual and religious leaders of Celtic society. Roman writers claim the Druids deliberately avoided writing sacred knowledge down, believing memory was more powerful than written words. Students reportedly spent years memorizing laws, myths, rituals, and genealogies entirely by heart. When Roman expansion spread across Celtic territories, many sacred sites were destroyed, and Druidic traditions were suppressed. Because so much knowledge had been preserved orally, enormous parts of Celtic philosophy, mythology, and history disappeared alongside them. Most surviving descriptions of the Celts come from outsiders like Julius Caesar and Greek historians, meaning Celtic civilization is often seen through foreign eyes instead of its own perspective. What stories, beliefs, and traditions vanished with the Druids may never be fully recovered. And it's a loss. Number 8. Library of Ashurbanipal. Long before the Library of Alexandria, there was another great collection of knowledge buried inside Nineveh. It belonged to Ashurbanipal, the Assyrian king who ruled in the 7th century BC and wanted to gather the wisdom of the ancient world in one place. His scribes collected thousands of clay tablets filled with myths, medical texts, laws, rituals, omens, astronomy, letters, and royal records. These tablets were written in cuneiform, pressed into clay with wedge-shaped marks. Among them was the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest great stories ever recovered. Without this library, that poem may have vanished forever. When Nineveh was destroyed in 612 BC, fire ruined the city but accidentally preserved many tablets by baking the clay harder. Centuries later, archaeologists found the broken pieces buried under the ruins. Even today, many fragments remain unread or only partly translated. Somewhere in those clay pieces, Mesopotamia may still be hiding stories we have never heard. Now, let's head over to number 7. Scylla's golden crowns. Among the most mysterious treasures in ancient Korea are the golden crowns of the Scylla kingdom. Delicate masterpieces buried inside royal tombs between the 4th and 7th centuries AD. Covered with branching designs, jade ornaments, and antler-shaped projections, these crowns remain one of East Asia's greatest archaeological puzzles. The Scylla kingdom grew into one of Korea's 3 kingdoms and eventually unified much of the peninsula. Its capital, Gyeongju, became a wealthy center connected to China, Japan, and Silk Road trade networks. Excavations revealed massive burial mounds filled with gold jewelry, imported glassware, and ceremonial objects crafted for the elite. The crowns themselves were incredibly fragile, made from hammered sheets of thin gold decorated with hanging pendants and curved jade beads called gogok. Scholars believe they were ceremonial objects linked to kingship and spiritual authority rather than everyday regalia. Their tree-like shapes may represent the world tree from ancient shamanic traditions. But without written explanations, the crowns still guard their original meaning in silence today. Number 6. Ancient Green Sahara culture today. The Sahara is one of the harshest deserts on Earth, but thousands of years ago, it looked completely different. During the early Holocene period, massive monsoon systems transformed the region into grasslands filled with rivers, lakes, wildlife, and thriving human communities. Archaeologists discovered rock paintings across the Sahara showing cattle herders, hunters, dancers, boats, elephants, giraffes, and crocodiles. These images prove that the desert once supported enormous populations living beside water sources that no longer exist. Excavations uncovered burial grounds, fishing villages, stone settlements, and evidence of organized pastoral societies spread across regions that are now empty dunes. Satellite scans even revealed ancient river systems buried beneath the sand. Around 3000 BC, rainfall sharply declined, and the Sahara slowly transformed into a desert. Lakes disappeared. Migration began, and entire cultures faded from the landscape. Some historians believe these displaced populations later influenced the rise of civilizations along the Nile, including early Egypt itself. Number 5. Korea's forest of dolmens. Scattered across the Korean peninsula are thousands of giant stone tombs known as dolmens, making Korea home to more than half of all dolmens on Earth. Some stand in open fields, others sit beside rivers, and a few remain trapped between modern roads and apartment buildings. Yet the people who built them are still largely unknown. Archaeologists estimate that over 30,000 dolmens exist throughout Korea. Many date back to the Bronze Age and were likely burial sites for powerful leaders or elite families. Excavations uncovered bronze daggers, jade ornaments, pottery, beads, and traces of ancient graves beneath several stone structures. What makes the mystery so remarkable is the scale. Some stones weigh more than 100 tons, meaning entire communities must have worked together to transport and position them without modern machinery. Researchers still debate how prehistoric builders managed such a big task. Without written records, the meaning behind these monuments remains uncertain. They may have served as tombs or symbols of power for societies history barely remembers today. Number 4. Jesuit China mission for nearly 2 centuries. Jesuit missionaries living in China documented politics, science, religion, philosophy, geography, and daily life in remarkable detail. Yet much of this enormous collection of records later disappeared, scattered across archives, confiscated by authorities, or simply forgotten. The mission began in 1582 when the Italian Jesuit Matteo Ricci arrived in Macau. Rather than rejecting Chinese traditions, Ricci adopted the clothing and manners of Confucian scholars while introducing European astronomy, mathematics, clocks, and world maps to Chinese elites. Jesuits became cultural intermediaries between Europe and China, translating Confucian texts into Latin while documenting imperial ceremonies, government systems, trade, architecture, and social customs in detailed reports sent back to Europe. Their writings heavily influenced Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire and Leibniz. But political disputes over Christian practices eventually triggered imperial crackdowns. Manuscripts were seized, hidden, or destroyed, while others disappeared inside European libraries. Historians believe huge amounts of information about Ming and Qing China may still remain unread in forgotten archives today. Number 3. Palmyra's rise and ruin. Deep in the Syrian desert once stood Palmyra, a wealthy caravan city connecting the Roman world with Persia, Mesopotamia, and even India. Merchants carried silk, spices, ivory, and precious goods through its streets, turning the city into one of the richest trade centers of the ancient world. At its height, Palmyra rivaled Rome itself. Massive colonnades stretched through the city, temples rose beside marketplaces, and inscriptions appeared in both Greek and Palmyrene Aramaic. The city became famous for blending Roman, Persian, and Near Eastern cultures into something entirely unique. Its most famous ruler was Queen Zenobia, who expanded Palmyra's influence across Syria and Egypt during the 3rd century AD. For a brief period, her growing empire openly challenged Rome. Emperor Aurelian eventually crushed the rebellion, captured Zenobia, and later destroyed much of the city after another uprising. Most surviving accounts of Palmyra come from Roman writers. The city's own records vanished, leaving historians to reconstruct its story through ruins, inscriptions, and fragments scattered across the desert. Number 2. The Moche civilization. Long before the Inca rose to power, the Moche civilization thrived along the desert coast of northern Peru between roughly 100 and 700 AD. They built massive adobe pyramids, mastered irrigation engineering, and created some of the most detailed artwork in the ancient Americas. The Mocha transformed dry coastal valleys into productive farmland through elaborate canal systems that carried river water across harsh desert landscapes. Their cities were centered around enormous ceremonial complexes like Huaca del Sol and Huaca de la Luna, structures built from millions of mud bricks. What makes the Moche extraordinary is their pottery. Their ceramic vessels portrayed warfare, rituals, fishing, farming, sacrifice, and even realistic human portraits with astonishing detail. These artworks act almost like visual documents because the Moche left behind no written language. Archaeologists later uncovered royal tombs filled with gold ornaments, jewelry, and ceremonial regalia, including the famous Lord of Sippin burial discovered in 1987. Yet despite their achievements, climate disasters, floods, droughts, and political instability eventually shattered Moche society. Alright guys, now let's end this with Number 1. 10 Lost Tribes of Israel. One of history's greatest disappearances began in 722 BC when the Assyrian Empire conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. After capturing Samaria, the Assyrians deported thousands of Israelites and scattered them across distant territories. Then, their story suddenly faded from history. The ancient kingdom had originally been divided into 12 tribes, but after the conquest, 10 of them vanished from the historical record. Assyrian inscriptions confirm populations were relocated into regions near Mesopotamia and modern-day Iran, yet almost nothing is known about what happened afterward. Over time, theories spread across different parts of the world. Some traditions claim the tribes migrated east into Persia, Afghanistan, or India. Communities such as the Pashtuns of Afghanistan and Beta Israel of Ethiopia preserved stories connecting themselves to the lost tribes for generations. Whether those connections are real remains uncertain. Genetic studies have produced mixed results, and historians still debate the evidence. But more than 2,000 years later, the fate of the 10 lost tribes continues to remain one of the ancient world's deepest mysteries. If you found this video interesting, be sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you very soon.